What's up, you beautiful sons of bitches? I love every single one of you. If you love fights, you're in the right place. I'm trying to curate the best MMA community in the entire world, and it starts with you. If you're watching this, subscribe, give me a follow. I want to have great discussions in these comments. So if you want to be part of the best MMA community, give me a like, subscribe. I appreciate you. But we have to talk about UFC 322, which went down this past weekend. And it was a stacked card. The entire card, early prelims, the main card, everything was fantastic. And it doesn't always play out that way. So things can look a certain way, but when they happen, so a lot of times they're not that great as they play out. But this card certainly lived up to it for the most part. And I'm going to get to that. But we have to talk about what went down and what it means. So I want to talk about Malcolm Wellmaker versus Ethan Ewing. Now, Ethan Ewing got the call on super, super short notice. I'm talking like 48 hours. He went straight to New York City. He literally hopped off the airplane, went straight to the weigh-ins. They're both bantamweights, but they fought at featherweight. And Ethan Ewing, huge, huge underdog, upsets Malcolm Wellmaker. Now, Malcolm Wellmaker, a huge prospect for that bantamweight division, and Ethan Ewing steps in and absolutely dismantles him. He looked fantastic, and I'm actually really excited to see how this guy's career pans out because he looked awesome against Wellmaker, and I think Wellmaker needed to taste defeat here to really realize the holes in his game because if he doesn't crack with that right hook, we saw he doesn't win. So he needs to figure out how to really be able to not only rely on that one tool, even though fighters like Alex Pereira have kind of made a career out of it. You need to be more than a one-dimensional fighter, especially at these smaller weight classes. So that was a great fight. I want to also talk about Bo Nickel. This man, I counted him out, and we learned something else. When I make picks, always bet against me because I was saying Bo Nickel is a smart pick to bet against with Rodolfo Vieira. Whew, he absolutely destroyed this guy. I mean, Rodolfo Vieira looked like a novice. He looked like an amateur. He was absolutely out of his depths with Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel looked fantastic. And then he puts the icing on top by landing that beautiful head kick knockout. And it was marvelous. It was incredible. And Bo Nickel is back. Not the same hype he had prior to his loss to Renier de Ritter, but he's getting back, and that was a great statement victory from Bo Nickel. That 185 division is tough, and I don't really know who you give him next because you don't want to give him too high of an opponent as far as quality. You want to kind of give him somebody who is known but is not going to be super, super high quality. Like, don't give him a Sean Strickland yet. I'm going to preface it by saying yet because maybe in a year or two he'll be ready for an opponent like Sean Strickland. But for now, give him someone like Shara Magomedov, the Bullet. Maybe he's ready for Paulo Costa. These are the types of opponents he needs now because he's not super young. So he needs to really start taking steps up now. And I think those two guys could be really quality opponents for him to really test the waters and see where he's at. Then we go to the main card, and we have Beneil Dariush and Benoit Saint Denis, and Benoit Saint Denis crushes him in the first 20 seconds. Beneil looked good, too, in the first 15 seconds, which is funny to say because it's like kind of like, dude, he got knocked down 20 seconds. But he looked good. He looked ferocious. He was landing those heavy calf kicks. He even knocked Benoit down with one. And then he gets caught with that hook and gets put out. And that's the third knockout that he has suffered in the last 2 years. He lost to Armin Saruki by knockout. He lost to Charles Oliveira by knockout in 2023. And now we just saw him get knocked out again after he's coming off a great win against Renato Moicano. So I don't know where he goes from here. At 36 years old, it's probably time he starts to really consider winding his career down, maybe have one more fight against someone who's known but not going to be super high quality, elite quality. It's just a shame because Beneil is a guy that beat Mateusz Gamrot. Like, he's a guy that is a really good fighter. I mean, just a couple years ago when Khabib was still active, he was a guy that he was talking about as someone who he might like to fight. I mean, this was a guy who's been in the mix for the last 5+ years, but unfortunately his career just hasn't panned out the way that he would hope it too, and it's really time he starts to really consider hanging it up. And speaking of a guy who should consider hanging it up, we have Leon Edwards. Now, Leon Edwards, Rocky as he's known, he lost to Bilal Muhammad, then he lost to Sean Brady, and the Sean Brady loss was kind of really severe. I mean, with Bilal, it was 3-2. It wasn't like a blowout loss, but with Brady, he was absolutely dominated. And then he suffers this loss, and maybe it's really time that he considers hanging it up. Again, just like Beneil, maybe have one more fight against a really well-known person, like Jorge Masvidal has been talking about coming back. That is the perfect fight, especially to have at the White House for the 250-year anniversary, the July 4th fights. That is the perfect fight to have because it's a British guy versus an American. They have that beef with the two-piece and the soda from years and years and years ago, but they can definitely dig that footage up and really sell that fight. I would tune in for that fight. That's an exciting fight. It's an interesting fight because there's a lot of parity between those two guys. I'd say Leon would be the favorite because Jorge hasn't fought in a while, but there's that. And then beat Jorge, retire. It's time, man. It's time because he's not going to beat these elite welterweights. He's not going to beat Michael Morales. Now, speaking of Michael Morales is the welterweight Francis Ngannou. When I say that, what I mean is Francis Ngannou didn't have to be accurate with his strikes. He kind of just threw clubs. His arms essentially are clubs, and he doesn't have to hit you flush. He doesn't have to hit you clean, and he doesn't even have to hit you in a moment you're not expecting it. You can be fully braced for it, and his power is so devastating. His size is so much bigger that he will still put you away, and we saw that against Brady. I mean, it's not like he caught Brady flush. He was kind of hit Brady with like a looping punch, and it just knocked Brady's equilibrium off, and then that's all she wrote. I mean, with a guy like that, as soon as he knocks you off, he's going to jump on you, and it's over. Now, Michael Morales, I don't know how this man makes 170. He is massive. Absolutely massive for that weight division. I don't get it. Because you look at Sean Brady and you look at him, and they just look like way different sizes. But Sean Brady's a juicy welterweight. He's got a lot of muscle on him. So I think he'll bounce back. I think that loss is going to teach him a lot. He should have really been trying harder to keep that separation, keep that distance, and then go for that leg. Michael Morales has a really wide stance. He had that front leg out really far. Sean Brady, I think if they were to rematch, I think what he would do is try to really grab that front leg and try to scoop him off his feet, because that's where Sean Brady does his damage. And love Sean Brady. That's my Philly homie. But unfortunately, Michael Morales had the better night on that night, and Michael Morales is a monster. Now, I got to go back because I didn't even talk about Carlos Prates. I talked about what Leon should do next, but Carlos Prates, this guy is insane. And similar to how I compared Michael Morales to Francis Ngannou, Carlos Prates is the Alex Pereira of welterweight. He just has this weird, devastating accuracy and power with his punches. He just puts people out, and it doesn't even need to be some monster blow where he's throwing his whole body into it. He threw that straight left. It landed perfectly through Edwards' guard. He set it up perfectly, and it was as Edwards was moving back, so it sent Edwards flying back like a cartoon. It looked so ridiculous. And then he just finished it off with that boom, that last shot on the ground, and that's all she wrote. Carlos Prates and Michael Morales should fight each other next, because we have a really complicated welterweight division. We have a really stacked welterweight division. And we have Ian Gary fighting Bilal Muhammad this weekend. That's going to be a number one contender fight, you would think. Now, Michael Morales, I think with that win over Brady, that really puts him as a number one contender, because Brady, after what he did to Edwards, I felt like he was a number one contender. Shavkat Rakhmonov is the true number one contender, but he's out till early next year, so he's out of the picture right now. I think Morales and Prates should fight, and that will be the true number one contender. But then you have Ian Gary fighting Bilal Muhammad, and Ian Gary beat Carlos Prates, so it's just like, what do you do with that welterweight division? And then you have Ilya Topuria calling out Islam Makhachev, and although he's super small, he could go up to 170 and challenge for that belt, because I don't see Islam going back down. So it's a lot of stuff going on. And then you have Kamaru Usman waiting in the wing, expecting a title shot. And honestly, his wrestling pedigree is probably the only person that you can really make a good argument for to have a chance at beating Islam. So a lot of interesting stuff going on in the welterweight division. It's the most stacked division in the UFC right now, and it's really not even too close in my opinion. Then we move on to the women's fight. We have Weili and we have Valentina. And these two women are at the pinnacle of their sport. I mean, they're both the best of the best. Weili, the strawweight goat, and then we have Valentina, definitely the flyweight goat. And you could even make an argument after that victory that she is the women's MMA goat. We saw Amanda Nunes suffer a really embarrassing loss to Juliana Pena. That loss was super embarrassing. And yes, Valentina lost to Grasso. And yes, she lost to Nunes twice. But she went up to fight a giant Nunes. And honestly, I think she won the second fight. That loss to Pena really damaged Nunes' legacy. And you could say that she was just out of it. She wasn't fully invested anymore. It doesn't matter. She lost to Juliana Pena. That woman cannot even strike. It's embarrassing to watch her strike. It's like, holy shit, this is a pro fighter. With all due respect, of course, but God. Valentina Shevchenko is the greatest women's mixed martial artist of all time. And I don't love how she gets her victories. I wish she would kind of make it a more entertaining fight. And I know, obviously, as a fighter, your goal is to win, but she just really, truly lays on top of her opponent. We saw it with Grasso. We saw it with Manon Fior, and we saw it really with Zhang Weili. She just laid on top of her and wasn't even really going for submissions, wasn't going for ground and pound. The main two fights, 50 minutes of just someone laying on top of another person. And that is just not going to sell pay-per-views. I'll move on to the main event because I'm alluding to it. Islam Makhachev defeats Jack Della Maddalena, and he absolutely demolishes him, 50-45. But it's not going to sell pay-per-views. I mean, Islam has a huge following, and he's obviously, with being Muslim, he has all the Muslim community on his side. A lot of non-Muslim people love Islam Makhachev. I like Islam. He's a hilarious guy. Really good personality for the UFC, but his fighting style, although I will say he's a great striker, and he doesn't do what Valentina does. He does try to make it a more compelling fight. I mean, he was going for submissions. Jack just had really good submission guard. I mean, he was really fighting the submissions well. I want to give Jack some credit there because he survived the 25 minutes, which is no small feat against Islam. And I think Islam going up in weight, he's not draining himself the way he was at 155. So I think we're seeing a better Islam here. And really, who can beat him? I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is the number one guy that can beat him. But like I mentioned, he's out till I think February. So that's not even in the cards for the next 4 or 5 months. So you got to think Islam took no damage. Maybe he'll want to fight pretty soon. Why not just match him and Kamaru Usman up? Let Usman get one last crack. I mean, he's the arguable GOAT of that division. Him and George St. Pierre both, for my money, GSP is the GOAT of that division. But Kamaru's done enough where he deserves one shot. Just give it to him. Islam will probably beat him, but maybe Kamaru will win. Who knows? But his wrestling pedigree, I think Michael Morales, I mean, although he's so big and he could land a monster shot, probably gets swept off his feet. Same thing with Carlos Prates. I mean, he could land a shot, but really, dude, he's so skinny. I think he just gets swept off his feet too. So the only guys that really have a real chance, I feel like, is Shavkat Rakhmonov or Kamaru Usman. If Sean Brady tightens up his holes, he has a really good ground and wrestling game as well. But, I mean, God, that loss is going to knock him back a little bit. He's not going to get a title shot for another 2 good wins. He's got to probably get 1 or 2 really good wins to get back in that title picture. But yeah, Islam Makhachev, he is the pound for pound number 1 fighter. I think him and Ilya are neck and neck as far as talent. I prefer Ilya because, of course, as a fight fan, I want to see a guy that knocks people out. Whatever. Call me a casual. I don't give a shit. I want to see a guy that doesn't just lay on top of his opponent and edge out victories. Although dominant victories, still just laying on top of his opponent. Instead of engaging in real fight exchanges, I just setting up the takedown, getting the takedown, laying on top, going for submissions, not going for any ground and pound. That's another thing I would love to see Islam go for more ground and pound. But he is the pound for pound king, him and Ilya Taporia, and I think that fight would be incredible. But is he really going to go back down to 155? Maybe if the money's right, but I doubt it. I think Ilya's bold enough to go up to 170, but Ilya's like 5'7". Imagine him next to Michael Morales. I mean, it would be a laughable size difference. And plus, Islam's already said he doesn't want to make a career of beating featherweights. That's why he didn't want to fight Ilya 155. He moved up because everyone gave him crap. Yeah, you beat Volk twice, but he's a featherweight. So I don't even know if he'll want to fight Ilya, but that is the number one fight to make. And I think at the White House, that could be a great headliner. So really, really good card. I'm really excited. And then this upcoming weekend in Qatar, we have Arman Sarukian versus Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker does have a chance, of course, but Arman Sarukian is the number one contender in the 155 division. And because he pulled out last minute against Islam, he's getting punished, but he is the number one contender. I think he is the most talented lightweight fighter on planet Earth, not named Islam Makhachev or Ilia Topuria. So he's got to be next, and I think he gets it done against Dan Hooker. And then the Bilal versus Ian Gary fight, super interesting. I do see Ian Gary getting it. He's looked fantastic. I think Bilal, he's just over the hill at this point. He's like 30. He'll be 36 soon, I think. So he's getting in that twilight of his career where Ian Gary's a young buck still, and I got to give it to him. He's annoying as hell. He is a cuck, the young buck cuck, but he is a fighter, and he does get in there, and he does fight, and I respect it. So I do see Ian Gary getting his hand raised there. So super excited. What do you guys think? What did you think about UFC 322? What are the matchups that you think should happen? I appreciate the view. I appreciate any comments you leave. Please subscribe. I'm trying to build that community like I mentioned in the beginning. I appreciate each and every single one of you. You're all the best. If you're watching my video, just know you the GOAT. And as always, stay tuned for the next one. MMT out.